So to kick things off then, can you let the people here know a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Okay. So I'm Grace Victory. I am a content creator / influencer. And I am Happy Fool's columnist, which is very, very great. Proud of that. And I wrote a book. I made a couple of TV shows. I predominantly talk about plus size fashion and mental health, trauma, healing. Started on YouTube in 2011, so I'm like an OG YouTuber, when it was very different. And then it's just sort of grown and grown from there, really. I don't know what to say, I'm just a girl. I'm just a woman on the internet.
Yeah, exists online.
Yeah, and I try and uplift other women, and anyone that follows me, but it's mainly women. And I just share my life, my love, what I've learned, and I guess I try to encourage women to step into their power and look good whilst they do it.
Yeah.
So that's what I do.
That's a very interesting point, because actually the first thing I wanted to bring up, because what I love about what you do is that you use your own kind of journey, your own story.
Yeah.
You're very true to yourself, and you use that to empower and inspire other people. But the reason I say that is because you posted something literally yesterday, I think it was, where you wrote on your Instagram, "We often hide the parts of us that need to be seen the most. Isn't it about time that we use our shadows to lead us into the light? Your power is in all of you, even the bits you don't like." And also, I noticed a couple of days ago, you wrote something in a similar lane about setting yourself free and being you. So can
you've done your research.
Yeah,
nice.
I just watch, I just observe. So what, can you explain like what you meant behind those words?
So a lot of what I talk about online, people are like, "Oh my God, this is amazing. This is right on time." And a lot of what I say is also for myself. I'm not that kind of like healer that talks about things from an outside perspective. All of the stuff that I share has to come through me first. Otherwise, I don't feel very authentic. So I'm in therapy. I talk about that a lot on my platforms. And therapy is wild, first of all. I go every week, and in my last session, so my best friend Alice is here, so she just knows what I'm about to say. You have the same therapist. So he said to me, I was saying, I'm just not authentic, I'm just struggling. I'm in between like what I've been through and letting it go, and then like stepping into like my full power, and letting go of my suffering, because I think a lot of us have identities to our pain and they become a massive part of us. And he said to me, "Well, you're trying to be superwoman, not being a powerful woman." And I was like, oh my God, drag me. And I realized that like there's parts of myself that I try to hide still, which I think is surprising to a lot of people, because I'm like this confident person on the internet and I'm very honest with what I talk about. But there's certain things that I still find hard to talk about, and certain parts of myself that I struggle to step into. And I just thought, can I swear?
Yeah. Do you mean fuck it? But do you mean in the sense of stepping into that and talking about it online, or in like IRL, in real life?
Both. I think that part of my brand and part of my success is because I'm very honest with what is happening. I find it really hard to go through something, learn a lot about it, and then not talk about it, because I'm like, if it was the other way around, I'd want to know, I'd want some advice, or just like a little Instagram caption to make it feel like I'm not alone with what I'm going through. So I just try and be honest with what I'm experiencing, whether that's like negative or positive. And my whole thing is making like holistic healing accessible. So what I've learned, I know that not a lot of people have access to in terms of like money, whatever it is. So I try and just give them a little bit of like free therapy through my page. Yeah.
I think that comes across, because like I said, there's a lot of things that I've noticed from following you for a number of years before we even met. So it's like, and I just can tell that you're being quite true to yourself at that moment. And I find that when I post stuff, and obviously I don't have like as much engagement and followers as you, but when I post stuff, I'll post the thing that feels right for me at that moment.
Yeah.
I won't just think, oh, I need to write something about it's Monday, be positive. I'll be like, I always screenshot quotes on my phone. So I'll look through the quotes, see which one jumps out at me. And then the one that jumps out, I'll then write something related to that, because that's jumped out of me for a reason on that day. And then I always find that those posts always they get more engagement because someone is out there feeling a similar thing.
Yeah, and I feel like people know when it's like regurgitated and when it's like your own heart. I think they know. My followers do anyway. And some days I have nothing to say. And that's one thing I've had to learn, is that you haven't got to constantly fill the void and fill the space all of the time. Sometimes just let it be. So there's some weeks and I won't post anything because I've got nothing to say and the internet is pissing me off. So, and then there's other times where I'm just on it constantly, like I want to inspire, I want to help. And there's other times where I'm like, someone needs to inspire and help me right now. So, yeah.
Yeah. So what's the biggest things that you've been learning through therapy then, so far? We got plenty of time, don't we?
Okay. Oh my God. Okay. I'm that kind of person. So when I first started therapy, I've been in therapy twice. So the first bout was for my eating disorder. And then that was all great. And I was like, but I'm still not there. So I started again with a man, which is just wild. And I thought, I'm going to go to therapy. Just give me like a year. I'll be out. I'm a year in and I'm like, oh, I've got about 3 years to go. And I want to have a time frame on things because I like to come out the other end of it. This is my problem. Whereas obviously true healing, you have to go through it and then you've got to go through it again and again and again. So I've really learned that healing is it's not linear, and you'll think you're over something or you're through it and then you get a trigger and you're like, oh. And I think I'm healed until I go back home to my family and I'm like, yeah, okay. So yeah, it's hard. So that's one of them. Second of all, that you can't have any expectations of therapy. I think people often think they're going to go to therapy and they're going to get a diagnosis or this is going to happen, and it doesn't always work like that. And showing up for yourself is the most important. Like you have like 50 minutes and that's just your minutes with your therapist. And it's important that you show up for yourself and you talk about the stuff that's actually going on for you. And you allow yourself to go through the process. What else have I learned? It's just really fucking hard.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard. And I get why people don't do it, because it's money, one, but also it is grueling. And you think that therapy is just that 50 minutes. It's not. When you're in therapy, your whole life becomes therapy. There's been parts of me that hasn't been able to create. So I've been sat at my desk looking at my blog like I've got nothing to say apart from I hate my life right now. And it's difficult, and you don't want to go out, you want to stay at home, you're miserable, you're sad. Sometimes I cry and I've got no idea why I'm crying. My boyfriend goes, what's wrong? And I'm like, I just don't know. And that's the process of it. It's just letting it all come out, letting it all flow, and letting your healing be what it needs to be. But yeah, it's the biggest thing I've learned is that it's really, really, really hard.
So the hardest part is kind of like showing up every time.
Yeah. And like I have this thing where I don't like to be sad. Because I'm like, or angry, this is not helpful for me. I want to be happy and joyous and I want to come out the other end. And so allowing myself to be miserable is also part of it. Yeah, because
I feel like you have to allow yourself to feel everything, because if you're not allowing yourself to feel sad or feel miserable or feel anger or anything like that, all you're doing is building up a resistance against it. And the more resistance you build up against whatever that bad feeling that you're trying to push away,
it gets worse.
You just create more friction around it and it gets worse and it grows, and then it comes back harder the second time, and then it comes back harder the third time, and it just keeps coming back and coming back and coming back. So So when you actually accept it for what it is, feel it, you soon realise, and it's hard, you soon realise that like actually this is a temporary state of mind, a temporary feeling, like, and it will pass. But when you're in it.
And you're in your, so obviously you have three parts of us, adult, inner child and ego. And your inner child comes out and she's like, my inner child's like, this is absolute hell. This is never going to end. And that's what, and it's really hard to like get out of that mindset whilst you're in it. Obviously nothing lasts forever, but it can be difficult, but you do have to surrender. And that is the thing. Humans, we don't like surrendering. We hate the unknown. We hate feeling uncomfortable. And that's what healing is. Yeah. You have to just let yourself fall and just hope to God someone catches you.
Yeah, it's true. So break down those three parts then. So you said adult, inner child and ego. Yeah. What do each three of those represent to you?
Your inner child, so most of our trauma is unhealed trauma from our childhoods. So everyone has that inner child, so that childlike, usually the irrational child. My child can be quite bratty, but also we learn attachment as children, so your attachment styles are going to come through with your inner child, triggers, things like that. And then your ego is that sort of narcissistic, which we all have narcissistic traits, that narcissistic traits come through, but your ego is what keeps you going as well. And that's why like some people will say, kill the ego. We're not killing the ego, we're integrating it.
Yeah.
And then your adult is the one that has her shit together. Like she can think straight. Yeah, she can think straight. She can make decisions. Things like everyone puts off their health appointments. So like dentist, I don't know the last time I went to the dentist. Things like that. Your adult self is usually able to like, I'm just gonna pick up the phone. A lot of people struggle with that. I do, and that's like my inner child coming in, and then. The whole point of healing is to integrate all of them. Yeah. And that's what we do when you're on your journey.
Yeah. I find like for me, the inner child is definitely there, but in a good way and a bad way. Yeah. Like the inner child gives me the kind of just the stupid stuff that I like doing, but also like I said, the kind of more bratty, kind of more having a tantrum on the floor kind of stuff.
I still pout. I'm like, my boyfriend's like Vasher in a child. I definitely still have little shots.
Yeah, and then for me, the ego is like the more, and I don't mean the ego in the sense of like how we're told ego is like, oh, he's got a big ego. I mean ego in the sense of like the stories that we tell ourselves about who we are and how we should be and how we should behave and all those sorts of things.
The ego is a very unkind voice. That's how I differentiate between like me and then other stuff I've internalized in my ego. So ego is usually like attacking, horrible thoughts, very like uncompassionate, whereas your adult self is like compassionate, kind. And your inner child, for some people, is often quite scared. Yeah. And that's how I hear the different voices.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to break down. That's why I was interested to hear how you would describe it, because I've had conversations similar where people break it down slightly differently. So it's always like, I always think it's quite personal to you as well. Like your inner child is obviously going to be totally different to my inner child or someone else's inner child or whatever. Yeah. So I think it's super interesting just to hear those things.
Yeah, I think it's important. You can't, knowing who you are, I think is one of the greatest things ever, being self-aware. When you can identify your different voices and the different things that go on in your brain and your soul and stuff, you're able to live a more fulfilled life. So like with therapy, you go deeper and deeper and deeper into your subconscious, and then you're able to understand your triggers more and what makes you tick and why you do that and why you react in a certain way. And it makes you're able to live a more wholesome life. Otherwise, you're constantly battling with yourself, with your loved ones, with your partner. And that's why I try and share what I do online to show people actually you haven't got to live obsessed with food or hating your body or whatever it is. Like there's other options.
Yeah, and I think what you're great at as well is that you're not always like, hey, look how great my life is. You're like very open with like if you're having a shit time or a shit week, you're like, this is how it is at the minute. This is how I'm feeling. And I think people do need to see that because, unfortunately for us, the way we digest stuff through social media, we're only seeing like the highlights of a lot of people's lives all the time. Yeah. So we're only seeing like the good stuff, the good of, the best of the best stuff. And we're not seeing like, actually, this is the real day to day. That person is posting a picture on holiday, but they spend 10 months of the year sat at their desk being miserable and hating their life.
Yeah.
So I think it's great that there's people like you in the world who are doing good things, but also showing up and going, actually, it's not all great all the time. Like sometimes we have to go through the shit to learn about ourselves, like we were just saying, to go deep into ourselves to then grow on top of that. And I think that's like part of my journey has been recognizing those moments and then going, actually, it's cool that I'm having these moments because I know that on the other side of it, as tough as it is right now when I'm in it, I know on the other side is growth, and I'm going to develop through it, and I'm going to learn through it.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to like self-worth, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, you have to believe that you're worthy of happiness, I think, to really feel it. And I think if you've had difficult experiences and you've had a lot of sadness, you can be so attached to like that pain because you're used to it. And it's about like taking a step back and being like, no, I actually deserve to have a really good life and to have good people around me and to feel loved and joy, etc., etc. But it takes time. I'm 29, I've just turned 29, and I only feel like my life is starting now. That's fucking wild.
Yeah.
So like, you know, a lot of people don't heal until they're 60.
Yeah.
So we start now because I don't want to have a child and have that child go through what I went through. So I'm like breaking that generational curse.
Yeah.
So that I'm starting a new, more well cycle.
Yeah, and one of the things that you mentioned earlier that you went through is suffering from an eating disorder, right? And I know I've heard you mention before that you kind of like outed yourself online about it.
Yeah.
So what was that kind of...
Oh my God, yeah.
What was
you
that
did your research. So I started YouTube 2011. It was very different. Everyone was like, I want to say normal, but that's really rude. But like, everyone had like a really messy bedroom, was making videos on their webcam. It was so chill. Nothing like what it is now. And I was getting loads of comments. I think because I just looked different. Everyone was quite white, middle class, thin, posh. And I'm not that. So I was automatically put in this box of like, you're so confident and amazing. And I was like, you've got no idea what's going on. But I think I'd put that persona out that I was like amazing and confident and happy and life was just fantastic, and it was not. So one day I did a video called The Pressure to Be Perfect and spoke about what was actually going on. So like depression, self-harm, issues with food, body image, and I just put it out there because I was sick of being called like a role model when I wasn't a role model, or I didn't feel like I was one. And I was just over it. So I thought, I'm just gonna put that out there and see what happens. Went out, and that I think was like the boom moment for me, one of the booms. So I got loads of subscribers, loads of followers from that. And I was like, so if you talk about your problems, people actually, like that's a thing? Wow. So yeah, it started on and on from there. And I was very open about my experiences with food and how I thought about food every second of every day. Was trying to be like this thin person, and the role models that we had back then were like Kate Moss. Yeah. It was the models like that, and first of all, I'm not white, so I can't change my skin colour, and I was never going to be a size 0, like it just wasn't going to happen. And I just spoke about it, and it turned out that is like a very healing thing. And then eventually I got help, and I went to an ED clinic and stuff. And it's so mad because when I talk about it now, it doesn't feel like it's me. Yeah. Because I'm so far removed from those feelings, and they might come back every now and then because I'm in therapy and things come up. Yeah. But that's just not me anymore.
So what are the differences you see then between Grace from 2011, 2012 to now?
First of all, my eyebrows. That's the thing. I think it was... a very wounded inner child and a very, very overt, loud ego. And I was constantly battling between the two, really obsessed with how I looked because of experiences. I think when you're black, mixed race, of colour and plus size, you're already talked about because you're so different. So being different and my size became like a massive part of my identity. And then I wanted to lose loads of weight, and I did lose loads of weight, and then I wasn't any happier. I was way more unhappier. And it was that strive for perfection that I've let go of, validation from other people, and very skewed views of what healthy actually is. I was just so obsessed with like being thin is the only way, and it really isn't. There's like health is about what you watch, what you're reading, what you think, and my thoughts were so unhealthy, and I was just a mess basically. And it's taken me a long time to like crawl out of this hole. I just thought that I had to look a certain way, be a certain way, that success and happiness could only come when I was that person. But funny enough, when I let go of all of that, that's when my success started coming. Yeah.
That's interesting in itself, that letting go of, again, that comes down to ego, I suppose, doesn't it? Of like, this is how I should be, this is what I should be like, this is how...
It's tiring.
Yeah, it is.
It's so tiring not living your truth. It's so tiring. Some days, I think it's important to live your truth offline, because I don't think that it's always the right place to share stuff on the internet. But some days I just want to tweet like, I can't fucking stand YouTube, or I can't. Obviously I can't do that. But in real life, my boyfriend, I'm like, I'm done with this shit. Like that's important to me. Like speaking and your throat chakra, letting it go, speaking your truth. And it helped me. And also like finding things in life that made me happy. If you're constantly looking in the mirror, you've got time. I ain't got time for that anymore. So yeah, I try to find like joy outside of what I look like. Yeah. So but now I love what I look like. I think I'm buff.
You look great. Look at that. Custom dress, right?
Custom made, honey.
So what is your truth now then?
My truth now is that every day I'm different. Every minute I'm different. We're cyclic beings, we change, we grow, we evolve, we go backwards sometimes. And I'm okay with that. That's my truth. My truth is that I don't know. Everyone always says, what's next for you? I don't fucking know. Like, that's my truth. I'm living in the moment for what is happening right now. I want to travel, I want to have babies, I want to do certain things, but it's all going to happen the way it's meant to happen. And I believe that the universe will provide. And that is my truth.
Yeah, and I think that what you said about not knowing or not planning too far ahead and just being more present is so powerful. Like, I've been going through a whole non-attachment process at the minute of like just not I'm a little bit of a hoarder of stuff sometimes. So
what kind of stuff are we talking?
Just like stuff in my room, like clothes, like just flyers from events, like just stuff that is needless that you don't need. But I just like feel bad throwing it away. But I recently moved out of my flat into gone back into my old bedroom in my parents' house. Whole different story. That's to free up some time later down the line. So the purpose behind that is that I want to do some traveling from January. So I moved back into my parents to save money so I can do the traveling in January. But what I realised was when I moved back into my old bedroom, because I'd been out of it for like nearly 5 years, I went back into my bedroom and all of my drawers and wardrobes were still full. And I was like, how? Like, I haven't worn any of this stuff for 5 years. So I literally went through this process of like, I emptied out all my wardrobe. I brought all my stuff from my flat, literally chucked it all in bags in my room, and I went through every item one by one with my mum. I went, keep, throw away.
I can't do that.
Like, literally, it was the most like therapeutic thing. And I really thought, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. I was really like panicking about it. I was like, I don't know if I can just throw stuff away that I've had for years that might have a little meaning to me about something, like a t-shirt Memories. I got at an event or something. And even like leaving my flat, I thought I was gonna be really sad about it, and in the end I was a bit like, I'm not that fussed. But that was a good thing, because maybe a year ago I would have been like, oh God, I can't do this. I'm gonna be so sad, like crying, leaving my room. I was like, it's just a room.
It's like understanding what is actually important.
Exactly.
But although honestly, I think shoes are important. I'm joking. But I love shopping, and this is, and I think there's a bit of give and take, because money and how we spend is directly or indirectly linked to trauma. And it's something that I've been like reading into and researching, because I think that I'm like a professor, but I'm definitely not. And how we view money is usually how we view ourselves and how we view the world. So like the other day I tweeted about this, and I said, to be honest, I woke up, I had a really difficult emotional therapy session, and the next morning I woke up and I could just feel heaviness, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go on ASOS, spent £200. I'm aware of like when I'm shopping like out of my emotion, and when I'm shopping because I really need something and when I deserve it. And for women, I think especially plus size women, so intrinsically linked to our identity. Like being able to step into your power and use clothes as a way to express and for art. Do you know what I mean? Like makeup is art. So I definitely think about attachments to certain things, but at the same time I'm like, but I literally love clothes. It's so hard to
get the balance. You just said something interesting on how we spend money is how we think about ourselves. What do you mean by that?
So obviously money's an energetic thing. Everything's energy. So often you will have issues with money if you look at your life as if you're lacking constantly. Or you were raised in a household that said rich people are bad, rich people are always posh, they're stuck up. And now as an adult, you might have grown up with the belief that you don't deserve money, so you never get it. So there's definitely an energetic and link with your childhood experiences and how you look at money. Because if you look at money abundantly, usually it becomes abundant. It's like anything, if you look at love abundantly, it becomes it. You know, you think certain things and they usually happen. But I just, woke up one day and was like, I'm just going to spend. And I thought, why have I done that? And then I realised that I needed to control something. Because in therapy, you often feel like you haven't got control because you work with projections a lot in therapy. So you'll go in and you'll say something and he'll be like, that's a projection. But in your mind, it's real, it's happening, it's not. And then by the end of it, you're like, it definitely was a projection. But at the time, you don't realise. So in therapy, I often feel like my therapist knows more about me than I do. And I'm not okay with that. And then I feel like I'm losing control. So for me, spending money is a way that I can control.
Oh, that's
it's
interesting.
Very deep.
Yeah. No, I like it.
It's a thing.
I like it. I might have to have a deep dive into why I spend. Because I'm I'm fairly relaxed with money. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't earn loads of money, but I'm fairly like, if I want to buy something, I'll buy it. Like, and I'm never like, sometimes I'm an hour depending on the price, but I also don't spend like more than 100 quid on anything. So like clothes, because just don't, fortunately. Although sometimes I was about to spend 120 quid before coming here.
And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like ASOS, Uber, Deliveroo, it's bad.
Yeah. But so my thing is like, I don't mind spending money on something if I know I'm going to get something out of it.
Yeah.
So that would be like experience based. So like the traveling thing, for example, I don't mind, that's going to cost more than a few hundred quid, obviously, but I don't mind spending that money or like booking a flight that might cost. It's going to feed your soul, isn't it? Exactly. Whereas if it's like I said, I won't go out and buy a £200 jacket because I'm just like, it's a jacket, I can buy a £40 one that looks the same.
Yeah.
And does the same thing.
We often want to buy new because we want to be seen in new. And again, it comes from a place of validation and need. Like this morning I was like, I really want to buy a new outfit for this job I've got next week, and I was like, don't do it, Grace, don't do it. And then I was like, no, don't do it, because I haven't got to wear new things all of the time. It's obviously like a capitalist. Honestly, there's just a lot going on.
And also, is it like a thing as well? Is there like a pressure that comes with doing what you do in terms of like, girls, for example, if they go to a wedding and they wear like a really nice pink dress, they won't be able to wear that at any other wedding because everyone's already seen the photos of them in.
Is it similar? Instagram.
Yeah. Is that similar for you? It's like you're posting stuff about you, but also you're quite into your fashion, and that's part of what you do. So is it a thing of like, I can't be seen in the same thing twice? Yeah,
it's so hard. But I'm into fashion. I talk a lot about fashion and share photos, but I've definitely skewed my content because I was very aware that the planet is dying. I didn't want to constantly be like, buy this on Pretty Little Thing or buy this on ASOS or whatever. So I try and show other content now, but I just love fashion, and I think it's important that we still enjoy things, even though we've got to be more conscious about our decisions. But I do think that it's important to feel joy in whatever way that you feel it. But yeah, there are some people that share a new outfit every single day, and I'm like, how are you doing that?
Where'd you keep it all for a start? Like?
Yeah, because I've got a like office space wardrobe / beauty room, and you can't see the floor right now. I can't keep it tidy. It's just clothes strewn everywhere. And I get sent a lot of free stuff anyway. I'm just very conscious about what I'm putting out there. I don't want people to think that to look good you have to always buy new. You can recycle, you can get things made. So this is like an independent seller on Instagram. Yeah. And I just said to her, like, I would love one of your dresses, like, let's collaborate. And she was like, yeah, it's amazing. So, like, there's ways to do it.
Yeah.
But I don't think we have to fight every fight, which is also a thing that I talk about. Like, when you are plus size, there's no sustainable brands that are reasonably priced and do larger sizes. So if I need to go on ASOS or Pretty Little Thing, I absolutely will. So, like, I'm not fighting all of the fights. Like, I'm fighting the stuff on eating disorders and body positivity and sex and trauma and whatever. But I'm not going to fight every fight that needs to be fought. I'm literally one person. So that's also important.
Yeah, I think, and knowing what the battles to face as well, like you said.
Yeah, I used to try and tweet about everything, like natural disaster here or this happening here. And I felt so low because I just had no energy for myself. So, you know, I do like retweets and stuff, but I do think that it's important to sort of like what you're passionate about, do that as your work. You haven't got to know about every single thing that's going on in the world.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, you can't win or fight every battle.
Yeah, it's true. And I think it can become a burden as well. The more you try to take on of like different things and trying to show support for this and that, you're just burdening yourself with, and it sounds bad, but you are like bringing it in, the energy into yourself to then spread the message to other people instead of being like, actually, these are the 3 things that I'm most passionate about. Let me just stay with these.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't care less about Brexit. I don't want to go into a Brexit conversation, but I'm so
God.
unengaged with politics. Like, it really unbothers me. So I don't even like it doesn't even come into my brain. Like, I don't even know what the state of politics is.
And I feel like, I get guilt though. Like, I should probably know about that.
Yeah, I do, but I'm just like,
but I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I'm the same. Yeah. Fuck Brexit.
So on next week's politics podcast, but so a few times you've mentioned already about energies and how everything is energy, and I know you're like big into your crystals. So let's go into that. Tell me about the crystals. Do you do crystal healing, or have you done crystal healing?
Yeah. So always been quite, I hate the word spiritual, but spiritual. My mum would teach me things and say things when I was younger. And this is in my book, so I'm just going to say it. But I used to talk to, my mum calls them imaginary friends. They definitely weren't. They were definitely spirits, but cool mum. And so I always knew that there was just some things that you can't always see with like your human eyes. And I just feel certain things. And a few years ago, I got really into astrology. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm a Virgo. So I'm reading about Virgo and then my moon sign, and it just sort of went on and on from there. And I've got 2 best mates in America who are very awake, I want to say. And America's a lot more forward with everything. Not everything. Take that back, cut out. With a lot of things like that in terms of like plus size fashion and spirituality and holistic healing and stuff. And they were like, oh, you should look into chakras. And when I hear a word that I like, I just start Googling stuff. Turns out that opened up a whole world. I was like, energy points, and I said, what? So I started researching that, and then I read a book called A Return to Love. And that was like, a catapulted me through the universe, into space, and back down. And that was what I would say is like my spiritual awakening. Yeah. I was very, very depressed like 2 years ago. And that, I think that's a sign of spiritual awakening. When you feel low and I couldn't pinpoint what was going on. I was with my ex-boyfriend and I was looking at him thinking, this isn't working. Looking at my career, this isn't working. Just everything felt off for me. And I went on this journey to like discover who I was, and got a clue still, what I liked, and like how did we get here? And I just started Googling stuff. And I don't know what happened, but something just shifted and I felt so alive. Like I was like, oh, I've just woken up to a whole heap of stuff. And then I got into crystals. I was never big into like medication, and I always knew that I was never ill as a kid. I never had anything wrong with me. I was never in the doctor's or hospital. And I thought, why is that? Why am I never ill? My sister's always physically ill. For me, it was always mental stuff. And I was looking into like illnesses and how sometimes like your trauma can play out in your body, and how we're all like just this one thing. I was like, we've got a soul, oh my God, this is amazing. Just got really into it. And then I came off the pill. I think a few years ago, there was a lot of articles about the pill and what it was doing to us, and we weren't really sure about it. And I was like, oh, fuck that, I'm coming off it.
Yeah.
So I came off the pill. I was having regular periods. Everything was fine. And then basically, I started bleeding heavily for months. Hospital, doctor, no one could tell me what was going on. And they were like, we think you've got polycystic ovaries. And I was like, oh no, babes, like no. Did tests, and they were like, no, we've got no idea why this is happening. And I was like, I think this is my trauma. And my doctor was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I think that because I'm going to therapy and I'm healing, my soul, my physical body is having to do something to get rid of it.
Flush it out almost.
Yeah, and she was like, you know what doctors are like, I'm not really sure that's a thing. And I was like, it's a thing. And I started researching like wombs and how women, obviously we're cyclic beings, and what our wombs can do and all this stuff. And it just changed my life. And I realised that I was living life very one-dimensional when there was a different way that you could live, and you could find magic in everything. And a lot of people think it's really like doodah and like hippie. But for me, I don't think I'd be the person I am if I didn't have it. And just looking at life in a more holistic way. And I think that, you know, women have been silenced for so long in terms of periods, in terms of bodies, in terms of food, sex, whatever. And looking at life a different way and having experiences that I was having at like women's circles and things like that, and reading what I was reading, something just shifted in me. And I think I just like awoke to like my divine power. Yeah. And I fucking love crystals. Yeah. I do.
So what did the crystals add to that for you?
So it depends what crystal it is. So obviously, I mean, do people believe in crystals here? Is anyone into it? Okay. Oh, okay, see, a few years ago, everyone would be like, what the fuck are you talking about? So they have healing, yeah. So they're like from the earth, so they're natural, and they've just got healing properties. So you can use like amethyst or clear quartz or whatever. But I gravitate towards citrine quite a lot, and citrine to me is like a paracetamol. If I've got a headache, put a citrine on, and honestly, 10 minutes, done. Yeah. Heavy periods, citrine, and then essential oils, obviously, like I love using those. And you know how some people turn to like paracetamol or like a cup of tea? I turn to lemon balm oil and amethyst. And that's just the way it is, and it helps me, even if it's like, what's that saying? Like if you think it's gonna help you, it does. What is that called?
Oh,
placebo effect, even if it's that, I don't care because it works. Yeah. And I just changed my life. That's literally it. And it's so hard to talk about because it's so true, and it's like a knowing that I just know, but a lot of people don't get it. But that's what it is for me. Yeah,
I think a lot of it is down to, and I'm not massively into crystals.
You should be.
I know, trust me, I've been told millions of times. But the reason I'm not is because it's another thing of like, I haven't really got time to start investing and trying to discover all this stuff. Yeah. However, what I was going to say is I think the reason why people discredit it, so I've got friends who are just like, nah, it's all bollocks, it's just like, it's a rock, how can it? But I think what we forget is that there are energies in the crystals, which is obviously why they do what they do, but there's energy all around us. And the best way that I can describe it, and I've described it a few times like this, is two ways. Is if we were trees, for example, right? Have you heard about the wood wide web? So this is, so they recently discovered, right, that trees work.
Well, okay, I'm going to go there, but trees definitely speak to me.
Okay, but
they're spirit guides to me. Yeah. I'm just saying. I'm not crazy.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Okay. All right, noted. But what I was going to say is, like, so trees work together. So we used to think that trees are individual, they have their own roots, they drink their own water. But if there's like a group of trees in a place and one of the trees is being less nourished than the others, the other trees all work together to then feed that tree. And this is just stuff that we we will never figure out how those trees know that, because it's the energies that they're combined with that they use to pull together to help
and
that
their
tree.
own little tree language.
Exactly. And the other way to describe it is we're all having this experience now as humans. We're, bodies of energy and matter or whatever.
Yeah.
But if we were dogs right now in this room, our experience of this exact same room would be totally different, because we would be engaging in the room through our smell, through our sight differently. So just because we can't see and experience these things doesn't mean they don't exist. Like, they're there. It's just we don't really understand how to fully take them on. And I think that's the thing with crystals, is we still probably don't fully know how to like take the energy on from the crystals, but they have that power within them.
Well, it's all perception.
Yeah.
So like, I've trained to be a counsellor, and on the first course that I did, I was looking at memory and how we could have the same childhood, the same parents, be in the same room, and we would see things completely differently. Yeah. So like, memory is a perception. How you remember things isn't always how they play out. I think that's the same with like people's perception of what can heal them and what can help them. I just believe that a rock can help me. I genuinely do. Yeah. And I think I don't know, like, when you're an adult, life is hard, and you've got to pay bills until you die. And I've got to do my washing, and I've got to mop the floors until I die. If I want to believe in a little bit of magic, I am. Yeah. And that's how I see it.
Yeah. So talk to me about the trees. How are the trees your spirit guides?
People think I'm crazy. So, the same way people love dogs, I love nature. I'm a Virgo, I'm an earth sign. So I like earthy, I like being in mud, well, I don't like being in mud, but like that kind of consistency, I like. And this is so wild. There's a tree outside my bedroom balcony doors. And some days I look at it and just think, you're just amazing. And I feel like when it like blows in the wind, it really relaxes me. And like, I feel like it's always saying, just be gentle, calm down, because I'm always like here, there and everywhere. And I have a spiritual healer called Amber, my friend. And I see her mum a lot, because her mum's also a healer. And she said, I keep getting this vision of trees. And I'm like, I knew it. And they, you see sound, you see signs everywhere you go. And I just find signs in nature. When people say go and hug a tree, back in the day I'll be like, shut up. But when you go and hug a tree, I feel enriched.
Yeah. No, there is, because there's energies that come from them, and it's a way to ground yourself. Yeah. And like I get that experience through the sunset. That really brings it out in me. And stars. When I can see stars, you will literally just see me like that. Okay, I've got to tell you a story. Looking up.
I've got to tell you a story. So if anyone knows me in this room or follows my Instagram account, I'm very in love. And my boyfriend is literally like, he's unreal. He's unbelievable. And when we first met, I knew within 2 seconds I was going to marry him. I knew straight away. I knew it. And we started dating, and we were out one day, and we came back really late at night, and we was getting out of my car, and I said, so what do you think about me then? Like, what am I to you? You know that question everyone goes, what am I to you? And we looked up, and he goes, what are you to me? We looked up and we saw a shooting star.
No.
And he goes, that's what you mean to me. And I was like, okay. Yeah, we saw a shooting star.
Sick.
Literally. That's how you know.
I've never seen one, you know.
Yeah, it was literally like, I thought that when shooting stars were like gonna come, we're told about it. We're not told about them. They happen all the time, apparently.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It was literally 2 seconds, and I thought, did you just see that? Because you know when you're like, did I just imagine that? And he goes, yeah, that's that. So we saw shooting stars.
Yeah. So tell me about this love thing.
Okay.
Because this very much interests me, because when we first met was at the start of this year, and I think you'd only just been dating for like maybe
couple
of
few months. Yeah.
And you were like, you said exactly the same thing.
Did I?
I met him, and I knew straight away I was going to marry him.
Cringe.
So, no, it's cool. Like, I think you should feel like that with someone. Like, if someone brings that joy out in you, then yeah, of course.
This is new though.
So, why? Tell me.
So, woe is me. I had a very difficult childhood. My dad was horrific. So my early attachment with men was just I didn't have attachment to anyone really. So growing up was always in toxic relationships that were codependent, or a relationship that I could control and manipulate to suit me, subconsciously, I didn't know I was doing it, but to keep myself safe, I needed to know what was happening, when it was going to happen. I needed to feel that control. I wasn't controlling, but from an attachment point of view, it was that kind of anxious attachment type vibe. And anyway, I had a spiritual awakening, and I thought, I've got to dump my boyfriends, I can't do this anymore. And I was in Jamaica, in the sea, crying, dramatic. And I had my crystals, and I was like this in the sea. God, if you can hear me. I was like, I need this to end. And then I got back, 5 days over.
Yeah.
So that happened. It was difficult, it was hard. I was single, I was back in therapy, I was working on myself. And I remember reading about love and how love love is patient, love is kind, all of this stuff. And I was like, I've never felt that kind of love before. That's interesting. And over the months that I was single and doing deep healing, oh my God, I cried every day. I recognised that a lot of my life I'd worried about how I was going to be loved and not how I was going to love someone. Mm-hmm. And I had this massive internal shift. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to think about how I'm going to be loved. I'm going to think about how I want to love someone, because I'd been in long-term relationships most of my life, but never truly knew how to love or be loved. But yeah, I think I was a very difficult girlfriend for a lot of my previous partners. I'm just going to put it out there.
Good ownership.
Yeah.
Good ownership.
Accountability. And so I started doing love letters to my future husband, which I know is so cringe, but I liked writing to the universe or to like my future boyfriend or whatever. So I had different journals, and journaling was really helping me to understand what was going on. So I had one to God, one for him, and then one for like myself. And I was just writing letters like, going through this today, I'm hoping it's going to help when we're together. Just honestly, thinking about it, saying it out loud is wild. But it was really helping me. So I was single, ready to mingle, whatever, feeling myself. Went on Tinder and Bumble. Tinder, awful, just awful. Went on Bumble. I matched with this boy called Lee, and I was like, oh, his name is Lee? He's mixed race, he's Jamaican, called Lee, he's lying. So I thought he was lying about his name. He wasn't. So I remember talking to my nail lady, I was in the nail bar going, I met this guy called Lee on Bumble, but I think he's lying to me about his name. He doesn't look like a Lee, he looks like a Dean. And all this stuff. Anyway, we matched, we exchanged numbers, and he called me, and that's it, I knew.
Yeah.
I literally heard his voice, and it was like my soul could breathe again. And I was like, I have manifested this. And then after a few months, we'd dating, we were together, whatever, he said, I think I manifested you. And he was doing the same thing. He's a musician. So he was writing music, telling his friends the kind of guy he wanted to be with, and it just happened to be me. And we're learning to love together, but he's been in therapy before. He's had an amazing childhood, completely different to mine, which I think balances us out. And he is just me, but with a penis. And he's a Pisces. He's very emotionally intelligent, watery, just like romantic and dreamy. And I'm like the stern Virgo. And we just work. But I think I was ready to be loved, ready to love. And I was very open for whatever me and him were going to be. But I secretly knew that we were going to marry each other.
Yeah. Does he
and
know
that's
that
it.
now?
He absolutely knows that. He knows what ring I want.
No pressure.
No pressure. And he's just the best man.
Yeah.
Like, period. I could not think of anyone else I'd rather do life with. He's just the best. And I think I had to go through all the stuff with other men and be in therapy to be with him. And it hasn't been easy. I think that people see how happy I am and what we're like, and think that, oh, you know, it's just easy. It's not. It's still work, and it's still hard some days. But the difference is you show up and you communicate, and you're there, even on the down days, even when you're triggered and you're arguing and things aren't great. Like, he shows up for me, and I've never had that before. Yeah. And he's just the best. And I think people can see where I've come from. I started YouTube when I was 21, which is wild. I'm 29 now, and they've seen, like, previous boyfriends have seen when I've been so severely depressed, when I've been very, very thin. They've seen everything, And I think people can actually see like true happiness. And that's why I share what I do, so people can be like, okay, I can actually be happy. Because when I was growing up, I don't think I ever saw true happiness.
Yeah.
So I try and, you know, do that for other people. And also for my children. I want my children to have like a really well confident mum, so they're able to go through life with the foundations that I didn't have.
Yeah, and does putting the relationship out there through social media, does that add like a layer of pressure to the relationship?
Not
or are
at
you
all.
both just like, yeah.
I mean, he's out there, but he's not out there. So we'll do like he likes posing. He's a good-looking boy, so I like to pose with him, and I get more likes with photos with him in. So we do Instagram photos together. He's in a few vlogs, but he's not a part of my career, like content-wise, at all. Really, I want him to be in stuff more, but I don't actually feel any pressure with him. Like, we're multifaceted humans, right? And I think a lot of the time relationships break down because you want someone to be a certain way at certain times, and he allows me to be moody or in my inner child or crying for no reason or sat on the sofa half naked eating Galaxy chocolate. Like, he allows me to be every version of me. Like, the other day he was like, "You're such a beautiful mess." And I was like, "Thank you, I am." Because he allows me to be like a mess sometimes. And then other days I look like this. And then he was like, "Yeah, that's why I'm with you, because you look like that sometimes." So yeah, like, he allows me to be, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just great, honestly. And I think people need to talk about love more.
Yeah.
Because it's the most basic human need. And I was so against it. Like, I don't need no man. I don't need anyone. I'm like this independent woman. And I like being in love, and I like having someone and being with someone. And I think that humans should talk about that more, because, you know, I think it's very vulnerable to put yourself in that position and put yourself out there and be like, hey, like, I'm really in love with someone. People don't talk about it as much as they should.
Yeah, but I think it's also a dangerous game in the sense of, like, what we don't want is people seeking their own validation and happiness in another person. Like, you have to have that not completed in yourself, but you have to be comfortable with that within
Being
yourself
alone.
before you can then share that with someone else, because it's not, you know, two half circles coming together to make a full circle. It's two circles coming together to share their experiences, share their happiness, share their joy. And that sounds like what you guys are experiencing, which is great.
Yeah, I think it's important to like your life just very basically, and like not have the most amazing things happening, but still being able to find joy in the mundane. Like, I did a blog post about my boyfriend, and I mentioned that it's sometimes mundane, but it's still never boring.
Yeah.
Like, you come home from work, like, you give each other a kiss, I take off my bra, he kicks off his shoes, and we sit down. Like, it's very mundane and can be quite routine, but like, it's better doing it together.
Yeah.
But you have to learn to be apart and be in that void of like nothingness, and then fill up on other things. I think you do need to sit in the emptiness for a while.
Because it can't just be like good time, because it's just not.
No.
That's just not life.
But my boyfriend's like that. He is. Oh my god. So like, I'm very realistic, responsible. Like, we've got responsibilities. We've got to do this. He wants to go out and go to the bar and go to bowling and cinema every single day, and I'm like, we've got to clean the carpets. We've got to do this. He's like, really? And I'm like, yes. So we do have that balance. But yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and I think that we should talk about it more. Like, love is great.
We should, you're right.
But it's hard to accept it though. If you're not used to being loved, it's wild. Like, I self-sabotaged a lot.
In
Well,
what
I tried
sense?
to. Oh God, we're going. Oh.
You brought it up.
Just in very subconscious ways sometimes. Like, I'd cause an argument as a reason for us to break up, and he'd be like, "But I'm not going anywhere." I'd be like, "Fuck." Yeah, a lot of self-sabotaging or like wanting to run away. And he has admitted to me before that he's had times where he's wanted to run, because it's a lot. When you meet the person you want to be with for like the rest of your life, that is a lot, because you're like, the rest of my life, that's another 50 years. So I self-sabotage. I think we do it in different ways. And mine was definitely like wanting to argue or like wanting to run, like trying to put my guard back up because I felt like I was too open. But now it's like settled and you settle into each other and you like sink and you keep sinking. So yeah, but I think it's part of healing.
Yeah.
You can't really heal without a bit of love.
This is very true. It's the opposites and you need them to coexist together.
Yeah,
100%. So I think this is a good point to take any questions. So there is a microphone that is at the back that Geraldine has. If you have a question, feel free to pop your hand up and just wait for the microphone, please. Have you got any questions? We've got one at the front. Thank you. Name, age, no I'm joking. Name and question, please.
Is it on yet?
Yeah.
It is on. I just wanted to ask, often like phrases like trauma and healing are thrown around a lot, but they're not kind of like defined very well, and I have my own understanding, but I don't know. I'm just wondering if you could give me like a definition.
Just to talk about trauma?
Trauma and like healing. Like what is your conception?
So trauma is any event that you weren't expecting or that you had no capacity to process at the time. So it can be like war and witnessing like a murder or a death. It can be a car accident, unexpected. I think it's called adversity, another term for it. Or it could be sexual assault. It's an event that you deem to be traumatic. So my trauma might have happened to you, but you didn't find it traumatic at all. So it's defined individually, and it's how the individual person experiences it. So it's usually no escape and no process of not being able to talk about it is usually what trauma is. And healing, processing your trauma and integrating your wounds into your present moment. So if you think about trauma and pain, a lot of it isn't actually happening right now. It's what's happened years ago or a few weeks ago. So healing, I would say, is processing it. And I think that you can heal in different ways. So for some people it's CBT. Other people it's trans-analytic therapy, which is what I have. And there's lots of different ways, counselling, talk therapy. Other people like more physical therapy. There's eye therapy, which I've not... Have you done that before? So like...
Never heard of it.
I think it's called EDEM. Yes.
Knowledge.
Yeah. There's loads of different ways. And for some people, it's like women's circles if they don't want to go to therapy. So there's different ways to heal, but that's kind of the premise.
Is like, so trauma basically at that time affects your like mind conditioning in a certain way. It's from that event that your perspective changes.
So trauma can affect, it changes your brain pattern. So it can affect memory, it can affect your sensory responses, it can affect pretty much every aspect of your life. And a lot of it is subconscious. That's why therapy, I'm a massive advocate for it, because you are able to go into your subconscious safely with someone that knows how to do that and handle it, and then bring things into your awareness, because unless you know about it, you can't usually heal it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So it's kind of like changing the kind of conditioning that happened during the trauma and processing the emotions of the trauma.
Yeah.
I think like for me, on top of what Grace has already said, I would say like 3 things that I always talk about, and I think the healing process incorporates this as well, is recognize, accept, grow. And I think the healing process is recognizing what the trauma is, so via you've figured it out yourself, or you've gone to a therapy or a therapist or something like that, and you've recognized it via that. The accepting part is learning to understand what that was, how to accept it and almost let go of it, and then once you've done that, you're then able to grow off of the back of it. And I think those 3 things for me is probably what I'd say that healing process, and that's how it has been personally. Like that process is like my healing process is like recognize the thing, learn to deal with it, accept it, and just almost try to let it go.
And
not
it comes
cling
in
onto
waves.
Yeah.
Is it right to ask one more question?
Yeah, go for it.
So obviously, like a lot of like personal, like self-help, like practitioners, and like Katie Barr and everyone, like they talk about like stepping back, like behind the thought. So would you not think like in that kind of way you kind of jump ahead of your like healing, because like she basically, I don't think Katie Byron, for example, she did any healing. Basically, she said she kind of went from depressed to this kind of like observer watching kind of a state. And so like basically if you can like step back behind all of this like mental conditioning and live from that space, then is healing like do you see what I mean? Like, is healing kind of necessary? Was that a part of healing?
I think what you're saying there is like that aspect of, you're saying stepping back is like almost like taking literally a step back, but like seeing things for what they are and just understanding about a thought and an emotion will come together. So I might have a thought about something that happened last week, and the emotion that might come up with that might be a good one, might be a bad one. So every thought that we generate will bring an emotion with it. And it's when we then attach ourselves to that feeling that we're having around that thought, and we start to create more thoughts around that thing and more feelings around that thing, we're creating more of that experience, rather than understanding that a thought that we have comes with a feeling, and then right behind that is another thought that's going to come totally randomly, which would be another thought with another feeling. But as humans, what we do is and I always use like a metaphor of like, we throw the initial thought and feeling that we want to cling on to because we want to feel that feeling and go through it again. We throw it into like a hypothetical washing machine and just let it like go round and round and round and round, instead of actually recognizing that this is just a thought and a feeling I'm having right now, and in the next moment there's going to be another one that comes along which is totally different, because that's how our minds work. We just generate random thoughts at any given time. But I think when we do attach ourselves to something, and more often than not is the negatives, unfortunately, that we do attach ourselves to, that's when we need to go through that healing process of understanding why we do that to that particular feeling, that particular thought. Okay. So the stepping back is like seeing that actually that is what I'm doing. But doing
that, stepping back is actually very difficult.
It's very hard.
I think after therapy I might do that, like I journal. But I think when you're actually in it and you're going through it, taking a step back is a lot easier said than done. Like that's really hard. I think the part of healing is actually going through, like the only way out is through a lot of the time. So you can try and take a step back as much as you want, but you still got to feel the shit to go through it. So I'm all about feeling. Like we as humans don't like feeling. We're scared of like feeling sadness or desperation or frustration. You feel it until you haven't got to feel it anymore. And you won't not wanting, you have to keep feeling that feeling until you feel it. Once you feel it, it's like, oh, it's not that bad. It's never as bad as you think it's going to be. Like, I push against crying all the time. And then when I cry, I'm like, that was the best cry ever. Sometimes you just have to let it flow.
Yeah, it's true.
No, I know I'm going to move on, obviously, but I sometimes find it like confusing, because on the one level, like your thoughts create your emotions. Yeah. So if you are able to step back, you don't actually necessarily need to go on to these negative emotional steps.
I've got a tip for you. So we do think a lot, but a lot of our thoughts don't actually mean a lot. A lot of our thoughts, like you can be driving and think, I wonder what it's like just to crash. Like you think of wild things sometimes, like open water, I think, I wonder what it'd be like just to jump in. Like you just think random thoughts. And I think that's why we sometimes become very unwell and struggle with anxiety, because we are a slave to our brain all the time, right? But grounding techniques really help. Like if you just sit with yourself for 5 minutes, feel your feet on the ground, like hear like the train going by or like the pit patter of a dog or whatever, and just ground yourself for a moment, those thoughts will literally flutter away, or you'll realize that it's just the thought. And I don't tend to listen to thoughts that aren't kind. That's usually your ego talking, or something that's wounded. Even if it's like you need to be held accountable or you're being quite toxic, that can come through very kind if it's, you know, a thought that needs your attention. We often think a lot, we think too much. It's important to feel. If you actually feel where the pain's coming from, what's actually happening, it's easier to process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Kind of. Yeah.
Sorry. Sometimes it's not helpful, is it?
No.
When you're just giving that advice all the time. I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
I often find myself confused, because you get like so many. I know you want to move on. Like you get so many different.
Don't listen to anyone then. If you're confused by people, listen to yourself.
You have to find what works for you.
No one will tell you what you need to know other than your own intuition.
And you'll always know what the thing is that works best for you. So like I'm a massive advocate of meditation, as you guys probably already gathered. But like that helped me to go through that process of recognizing thinking, because when you're meditating, you're not trying to get rid of thoughts, you're sitting with your thoughts, and you soon realize all of the random stuff that just generates and pops up, and then you bring yourself back to the breath, and then more random stuff pops up, bring yourself back to the breath, and that works for me. Whereas like Grace might have something totally different that works. So it's about finding the thing that not only you enjoy but works for you as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I think meditation helps with your awareness of everything that happens, and that kind of helps your ability to step back and observe your walk back.
Yeah.
I'll get that.
Have you got any other? We got a question on the other side.
Grace, just thanks for your openness. I really appreciate it tonight. Inner child. So, was there any practical stuff that you did in therapy around inner child? Because
When you mean practical, what do you mean?
Like you mentioned about writing letters and things like that.
Oh my God.
Visualization.
Okay.
So I wonder whether there was anything you did for your inner child in your therapy.
Yeah. So
That's a good question, by the way.
one task that I found incredibly raw was looking. So in therapy, there's a chair or there's like a bed next to wherever you're sat. My therapist told me, he said, like, visualize your inner child next to you and what do you need to say to her. Oh my God. I was like, couldn't breathe. That's a really good one, because a lot of the time, so for me, everyone's different, but my anxiety and my need to control and the scared person is my inner child. And she's often thought that when I meet a guy, because of previous stuff, that I am going to lose myself and forget about her when I meet someone. So when I met my boyfriend, that was this fear that she was having, was that you're going to lose your power if you allow yourself to love someone. It's quite a vulnerable state to be in. So I had to look at her, and I had to talk to her. That was really, really amazing. And writing letters to her as well has helped.
So did you do the talking physically? So like,
yeah, I had to say it out loud. Do you know how wild that is? I thought I was crazy. And that really, really helped. And I think people always say, how do I connect to my inner child? One thing is doing things that you did as a kid. So I would say for 6 months, I was just painting. I cannot paint or draw, but I was just constantly painting because that was a way that my inner child wanted to be seen. Dancing, play, like just doing really childlike things, which I think when you're an adult and you've got to go to work and you've got bills to pay and you've got kids, it's really hard to do that. But I think it's really important because our inner child is in every single one of us, but they've usually been silenced or forgotten about because you're ashamed of that person or what they experienced. So yeah, there's 2 good tasks: letter and talk to them.
I like the talking idea.
Yeah,
Sounds
it's
great.
wild.
Did you write the letter with your opposite hand in it, so it's like childlike?
No, I didn't. That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's one way of doing it. Yeah.
No, I wrote it.
Because it brings you back to your shoulder by looking.
Yeah.
At
Oh my God, I might try that. Okay.
Sick idea.
Cool.
Nice. We got any other questions? Or one more?
Hi.
Hi.
How do you deal with talking about trauma and the real life things that you're going through, as well as influencing and things that brands want you to say?
Oh dear. Okay. So I think I'm very lucky that I work with brands that sort of get it. So I do a lot of work with Always, which is around period poverty, and obviously I talk about periods a lot. So that sort of aligns with that. And I think brands are very aware. Back in the day, brands didn't get me, I don't think. They wanted the typical, like, put together, sort of like Chanel wearing, posh influencer. Like, that's not going to be me. And I think in the beginning, I really struggled with like finding my feet, who I want to work with, where I want to go. And I remember like in 2013, you just couldn't swear. Brands hated you if you swore, and I'm a big swearer. So I had to stop swearing for a while, which I would never do now. So I think I struggled in the beginning, but back then you didn't actually make a lot of money. So I was making £70 a month, really. It wasn't a lot, it wasn't a full-time thing. But now I think brands are aware of like authentic voices and people have different experiences. So I wouldn't want to work with a brand that didn't like me for me and what I'd experienced and what I've been through. There are certain things that I wouldn't talk about a lot. So like, I don't talk about sexual assault a lot online, even though I've experienced that. I just don't think it's a safe way to do it. So there's certain things that I don't talk about, but I just don't really care. I think if a brand wants to work with me, they work with Grace as the whole person. And I have a lot of stuff to say, and luckily there are brands that don't mind or like it. But it is hard, and I've definitely had offers from brands that have been like 20 grand for the most ridiculous thing, and I'm like, I would love to say yes, but I can't. It goes against my morals, it goes against what I believe in, and my followers will be like, what are you doing? So I just try and like stick to what I know and work with brands that appreciate what I do. And luckily we're at a time now where the focus of content is shifting. It used to be about looking pretty on like the street in an outfit or putting on like a MAC lipstick, whereas now a lot of the campaigns that I get are around like sex positivity or working with young people, periods, body image, and that's obviously where I flourish. So I think I'm in a good position, but it has, I mean, like 3 years ago, I wasn't making any money. I was seeing bloggers hashtag ad, and I was like, I'm sorry, what's a hashtag ad? Because I weren't getting no money. And then now, like, obviously things have shifted.
Yeah.
And I definitely like milk it. I know that I'm a token plus size girl or the token ethnic one. And I'm like, I'm taking that check, but I know I've got my eyes on you. So, and you know, I'll have words with people. So you do have to find that balance of like not going where you're not wanted or appreciated, but also like I have bills to pay. So it is difficult, but I'm very open about that online. Like, you know, I'm not afraid to talk about that kind of stuff. Yeah. Did that answer your question? I often ramble. I need to shut up.
No, it's good. It's good rambling, though. Anyone else got a question? No, that's cool. Cool. Well, I've got a final few questions for you.
Oh.
Unfortunately. So first one is, if we could go back in time.
Yeah.
And we could speak to a younger Grace.
Oh my.
Yeah, I love this question. What 3 bits of advice would you give to yourself to start doing from that moment?
What do you mean?
Like if you could...
Like stop doing this or start doing this type thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
To take on board from that very moment.
Okay. Stop plucking your eyebrows. Because my eyebrows, I'm sorry. Wow. That's what I'd say. Stop plucking your eyebrows. Do not give up dancing. I gave up dancing when I was 18 because my dance teacher said that I needed to lose more weight to get into dance school, and I was literally starving myself. So I would say keep dancing, like don't give up. It's not a regret, but I think that my childhood self needed that to keep dancing. And 3, you're absolutely beautiful the way you are. You haven't got to change. I think that's what I'd say to her.
Nice.
Oh, my
I'm sure she'd appreciate it.
I know, bless her.
And then second to last question,
Yeah.
Obviously Dreamer's Disease, name of the podcast. What would be your definition of Dreamer's Disease?
Grit. So I don't think you need to have, okay, this is a bit wild to say. I didn't go to university and wasn't particularly academic. I don't think that you need all the avenues that you're told that you need to have as a kid. It's grit. Like, I think self-belief gets you places nothing else can. I'm not great at editing videos. I don't make the best content on Instagram. Like, I'm not that great, but I'm also great, if that makes sense. And I think that I've got my foot in the door and I've got things because I have a lot of self-belief. And that's what Dreamer's Disease is to me, is like knowing who you are with conviction and not taking like no for an answer. And loving yourself enough to sell yourself. Like in any meeting, I will absolutely boss it. Like when I get a job through, I'm like, let's go and meet them for breakfast because I know that when they meet me, they'll love me, and they always do.
Yeah.
So like I know I'm gritty and I have a lot of self-belief, and I think that when you get older and you become an adult, you forget to dream. Because you've got responsibilities, you've got things to pay for, and you can't do that because you've got that outgoing and you've got to pay your car off, all that kind of stuff. But like sometimes like a little dreaming can get you to the next stage. Like just having that like vision board or just that like little belief and just that dream that can just grow and grow and grow. And that's what it is to me. I think self-belief. You can be talented and not do anything with your life because you don't believe in yourself.
Yeah.
So, grit. Gritty.
I like that. That's good. that's. I think it's very true as well, because, like, if you don't, I mean, sometimes you can lack the belief, but you have to push through it sometimes as well to just keep going, to show yourself, actually, I should be believing in this thing or in myself or in what I'm trying to do. Because that's the hardest moment, when you just think, I can't be fucked with this anymore.
And you got to celebrate yourself, like the smallest thing. Like, my friends say, oh, I got this this campaign come through, or my art is here. I'm like, you got to celebrate then. You have to celebrate the smallest things. And I celebrate everything, because life is hard enough. Like, have a party every now and then. Do you know what I mean? Like, you need to have fun. So celebrate yourself. That's a massive thing. And I realise that you're the actual shit. Yeah. Like, a lot of us are like, oh, I just this really great thing. Like, it's kind of small, but no, fucking scream it. Like, you are the fucking shit. Like, just say it. And I love people that just say it. Like, obviously, like, you have to believe it though as well. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, it's not going to help you. But you have to really know that you're amazing. Yeah. Simply by being you. You haven't got to have a flamboyant career or 1 million followers on Instagram or whatever it is. But, you know, you're here, you're alive, and you're meant to be here. You've got a purpose. And I think more people should believe in that. Yeah, for sure. What does happiness mean to you? Oh, for fuck's sake. What kind of questions are these? What does happiness mean to me? Oh, my God. What does happiness... I think happiness is me living my truth without performing. I think that when you're in the public eye, people have different perceptions of you and different stereotypes. And I think if you're plus size, you're automatically called bubbly. What the fuck is that about? And there's certain things that, like, people want you to be. Like, if you're black, you've got to be, like, sassy and shit. Like, and I think when I can be myself without putting on a performance, that's when I'm, like, content with who I am. And happiness is honestly fleeting. Like, happy is something that we constantly chase and never find because we're chasing it. Like, you decide in that moment to feel joy. Like, I can be very, very sad, but still actually have a lot of joy in my heart. So happiness is, like, a very, like, fleeting thing for me. I much prefer, like, filling up on things that bring me joy, because when you do feel sad, you're not as sad because you have that foundation that's there. It's weighty, it's strong, and it's based on joy. So being my authentic self and being able to be me, because I wasn't me for so long. Yeah, love that. And I think that's very true for most people. Like, I feel it myself, because, like, I've always kind of tried to live in a space where I'm trying to do things for other people and forget about doing the things for me, because I just like doing them and because it's authentic to me. And I think, I know some people might think it's a bit weird or whatever, but I'm just like, do you know what? I'm going to do these things for me. And the more you do it, the more you go down that journey of, this is why I'm doing it, because it's really feeding who I am. And it's like, I don't even care what other people think anymore. It's like, I'm doing this for me. And that's when, like, I call them light bulb moments. Yeah. That's when the light bulb moment happens. When you really choose yourself, especially women, when we choose ourselves, the joy and the freedom that comes from that, you can't describe it. It's just a feeling you get, and it's like the world has suddenly changed. And it's the best fucking feeling. And I tell everyone that follows me all the time, like, choose yourself. Like, stop settling. Stop making yourself small because you're afraid to take up space in terms of, like, your energy and your size. Like, take up space. Like, demand the fucking room, because life is so short, and we, like I said before, have been silenced for so long. We're told to look a certain way, be a certain way, and honestly, like, fuck that. Women, like, we are rising up, and we're coming for everyone. So I'm just letting you all know. I'm letting you all know. We're here for it. Well done, babes. But thank you to Grace for being here. That was amazing. Thanks for being so honest and open, and for being
authentically you, and for just
Thank
swearing
you.
a lot, and for looking fabulous,
I can't help it.
and for being funny and everything else. Thanks to you guys for being here as well. This has been Dreamers Disease live at London Podcast Festival. So thanks to London Podcast Festival for having us.
Woo.
And yeah, it's been wicked. Cheers, guys.
Thank you. Amazing.